The courthouse was a cathedral of consequences. Each step up its marble stairs felt like a verse in a quiet hymn, each one echoing longer in Naomi Vera's memory than the last. She climbed them like she'd been here before, because she had, too many times to count. But this morning was different. She wasn't just walking into another courtroom. She was walking into the past. The air inside was too cold for May. Her breath didn't fog, but her fingertips went numb as she adjusted the cuffs of her navy suit. She hated that she still got nervous. That she still double-checked the buttons on her sleeve, the smooth fall of her dark curls, the meticulous gloss on her lips. She'd fought for every inch of respect in this city. There were no second chances in her profession, especially not for women like her. Not for women who never smiled too wide, who never married, and who never let people see them cry. The kind of woman who made juries uncomfortable and opponents furious. That was her favorite kind of woman. Naomi stepped through the double doors of courtroom 9. The smell hit her first, old paper, fresh coffee, and faint cologne from the bailiff stationed by the door. She barely registered it. Her eyes were on the man already seated at the defense table. Ezrin Cole. He didn't look like a murderer. His file said 43, but he wore it well, warm brown skin, a closely trimmed beard flecked with gray, and the kind of quiet that didn't demand attention but held it anyway. A jazz pianist with a reputation for improvisation and a following that stretched from local lounges to European festivals. No priors. No public scandals. Just one dead man. One damning fingerprint. And one mysterious letter that had landed in Naomi's mailbox 3 nights ago. No return address. No explanation. Just 3 lines in handwriting she hadn't seen in 15 years. Defend him. He saved me once. Now it's your turn. It was signed, Love Always, Your Mother. Naomi had read it 100 times under her kitchen light, the words glowing faintly gold against the aged paper. Her mother, Maris Veras, had been gone since Naomi was 19. A car crash on a rainy Tuesday. Closed casket. No goodbyes. She didn't believe in ghosts. But she'd taken the case. Naomi approached the defense table and set her briefcase down gently. Mr. Cole, she said quietly. He looked up. His eyes were a musician's eyes, half memory, half melody. You don't look like her, he said softly. Naomi stiffened. My mother? He nodded once. But your voice has the same edge when you're hiding something. Naomi's breath caught. She didn't show it. She said you saved her. I tried, Ezrin said. Some wounds don't heal the way we want them to. The bailiff called for order. The judge entered. All rise. The ritual unfolded like it always did, but Naomi's focus was fractured. Her mind was caught between the man beside her and the name buried deep in her past. She stated their plea, not guilty. The prosecution smirked. The judge noted. The jurors scribbled on notepads like students waiting to be convinced. Then the courtroom doors opened again, and time stopped. He entered like he belonged. Dark gray suit. Lean frame. Silver hair combed with the same precision as his jawline was shaved. He didn't glance at Naomi. Didn't wave. Just took a seat in the back row. Marcelo Veras. Her father. The last time Naomi had seen him was the day of her college graduation. He hadn't come to the ceremony, hadn't sent flowers, hadn't even called. But he'd left a file in her apartment, a detailed breakdown of law firms hiring interns. At the top, his business card, and a note that said, "You're too smart to waste time being angry." She'd burned it. Now, years later, he was sitting at the back of her courtroom. Watching her defend a man she barely knew, accused of murdering a man her father once worked with. It was the first time in a decade that Naomi felt completely unbalanced. She turned her eyes forward. Let the prosecution present their opening statements. Let the judge nod. Let the jurors listen. She clutched the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles went pale. And then, Your Honor, the prosecutor said, we'd like to admit the surveillance footage from the night of the murder. Naomi's pulse quickened. The footage. She'd seen it a dozen times. Ezrin Cole, wearing a long dark coat, walking into the lobby of a luxury penthouse building. 10 minutes later, he exited through the side door. 30 minutes after that, Gil Mackey, the victim, was found dead in the suite above, with a piano string wound tightly around his neck. Objection, Naomi said, rising. Relevance. Overruled, the judge replied. The video played. Grainy footage. Ezrin's silhouette. A quiet city street. Ezrin didn't flinch watching it. Naomi glanced at him, searching for guilt, for fear, for anything. But he sat still, hands folded, eyes on the screen like he'd already memorized every frame. When court recessed for lunch, Naomi stepped outside alone. She leaned against the red brick wall just beyond the doors, the cool shade softening the sharp ache behind her eyes. Then. Care for a sandwich, counselor? She turned. Ezrin stood beside her, holding out a wrapped sandwich. Tuna. You've been gripping your stomach since the start of the hearing. I don't eat during trials, she replied. He arched an eyebrow. That's either commitment or punishment. She took it. Maybe both. They stood in silence for a moment. You're good at this, he said. Naomi glanced at him. You've only seen me work for 45 minutes. I can hear it in your voice. You talk like someone who doesn't leave anything to chance. I don't. But this case, he said, voice gentler now. You didn't take this one for the win. Naomi looked away. I'm still not sure why I took it. Ezrin was quiet. Then he said, she told me you'd become brilliant. That you'd burn like a lighthouse. Naomi's throat tightened. My mother said that. More than once. Back when I was still at the halfway house, she volunteered twice a week. Always had her sleeves rolled up. Kept books in her car to hand out. She saw something in people. She didn't tell me about any of that. She didn't want you to worry. She said you were already carrying too much. Naomi blinked hard. I didn't carry enough. No, he said softly. You carried too much. Just too quietly. For the first time in a long time, Naomi didn't know what to say. Before she could find words, footsteps approached. Marcelo. Naomi stiffened. Counselor Veras, he said with mock formality. May I have a moment? She turned to him slowly. You forfeited your moments years ago. He looked older up close. Thinner around the eyes. But his voice was still iron wrapped in charm. I can help your client. Naomi crossed her arms. Why? Marcelo glanced at Ezrin, then back to her. Because I knew Gil Mackey. And because I know what you don't. Try me. He had enemies. Powerful ones. And your client wasn't one of them. But I know who was. And I can testify to that. Why not go to the police? He hesitated. Because some of them are involved. Ezrin frowned. You expect us to trust you? Marcelo ignored him. His eyes were locked on Naomi's. You don't have to trust me. Just let me testify. Naomi stared at him. The man who taught her how to win every argument. The man who told her emotion was weakness. The man who left her mother crying in a kitchen they couldn't afford to repair. And now he was here. Offering help. Or control. She wasn't sure which. I'll think about it, she said quietly. He nodded once. Then left. Ezrin didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was laced with quiet sympathy. You're braver than he ever was. Naomi looked at him. You don't know him. But I know you, he said. And that's enough. The warmth in his voice was almost unbearable. She turned away, her voice rough. Don't fall for your lawyer, Mr. Cole. It's a cliché. Don't fall for a jazz pianist with murder charges, he replied, smiling faintly. It's reckless. They both stood quietly again. The spring air had the scent of new leaves and old pavement. Somewhere nearby, a saxophone played in the distance. Naomi didn't believe in fate. But for the first time in a long time, she wondered if her mother had. The notes came to him first. Not from a piano. From memory. Soft, fractured melodies played in Ezrin Cole's head as he sat alone in the holding cell, elbows resting on his knees, wrists cuffed in front of him like a man trapped in his own body more than the cell. The room was quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed against your skull like water. But in his mind, music filled the void, jazz chords half-formed, harmonies his fingers used to find without thought. They swirled now like ghosts. Out of reach. Haunting him. He hadn't played in months. Not since that night. Not since blood stained the marble floors of Gil Mackey's penthouse and a piano string, one of his own, custom-ordered from a little shop in Paris, had been found wrapped around the man's neck. He didn't kill Gil. But he'd wanted to. And in his experience, the law rarely cared about the difference. A soft knock on the metal door jolted him from his thoughts. The guard opened it, nodding once. Your lawyer's here. Naomi Veras stepped inside, eyes sharper than scalpels, suit immaculate as always. She carried a folder and a look that said don't lie to me. I hope you slept, she said, not unkindly. Ezrin gave a crooked smile. I don't sleep in rooms without windows. Naomi sat across from him, the cold metal table between them. Her presence changed the air, made it electric. Not just because of her sharpness. But because she was the only person in this whole mess who didn't flinch when she looked at him. She opened the folder. Prosecutions building their timeline. They're leaning hard on motive. You knew Gil. You met with him that night. You were struggling financially. Your career had hit a slump. He owed you something. That's their theory. Ezrin leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. He owed me a life. Naomi blinked. What? Mine. He took it. Slowly. Over years. One cut at a time. She didn't interrupt. Just waited. I was 26. Fresh off a tour in Europe. He found me at a showcase in Chicago. Said I had the soul of old Harlem, but the discipline of Juilliard. Offered me a contract. Said he'd make me a star. Naomi's pen stopped moving. Ezrin's voice dropped. He made me a product. Controlled everything. The music, the branding, the interviews. But it wasn't just business. He manipulated. Threatened. Eventually, he took more than money. Like what? Time. Dignity. Control. The kind of theft that doesn't leave fingerprints but carves itself into your bones. Naomi's eyes flickered. Why didn't you report him? I tried. He buried it. Lawyers, bribes, counterclaims. I lost gigs. I lost friends. I lost my name. Naomi closed the folder slowly. And yet, she said, you went to his penthouse. Ezrin's voice was quiet. Because he called. Said he wanted to apologize. Make amends. And I. He stopped. You hoped he meant it, she finished for him. He nodded. I went, he said, against my better judgment. He offered me a drink. We talked. It got heated. He said the apology was just a test, to see if I'd come crawling. I left. I swear. I didn't kill him. Do you know who might have? Ezrin hesitated. I have ideas. But no proof. Not yet. Naomi stood. You're going to have to trust me. I already do, he said softly. She paused. Her eyes held his. In that instant, a quiet current passed between them, less electric, more magnetic. The kind of pull that didn't shout, but whispered. The kind that meant trouble. I'll be back tomorrow, she said. Naomi, he said, before she turned. She stopped. Thank you. She said nothing, but her silence carried weight. She left, and the door closed behind her. Ezrin leaned back again. And let the music return. Flashback, 10 years earlier. The nightclub was low-lit, filled with warm smoke and cold laughter. Ezrin played like he was telling secrets, fingers sliding across ivory, coaxing melodies from air and shadow. Every woman in the room watched him. Except one. Maris Veras. She sat in the corner, a notebook on her lap, her eyes reading sheet music she wasn't writing. When the set ended, she approached him. You play like you're hiding something, she said, before he could speak. He grinned. Everyone's hiding something. She smiled, then handed him a business card. Maris Veras. Non-profit legal aid. I help people with complicated stories. He looked at it. You think I need help? I think everyone does. Especially when they don't ask. He didn't call her the first week. Or the second. But the third, when Gil froze his accounts and cancelled 2 shows, Ezrin found her card again. She got him a new contract. Helped him fight back. Made him promise he'd stay clean. She gave him a lifeline. He gave her a song. He never forgot her. Present day, courtroom. The prosecution's star witness took the stand. It was Jackson Reed, Gil Mackey's former business partner, a snake with perfect teeth and a blazer too tight for decency. He smiled at the jury as if he'd already won. I saw Cole leave the building, he said. Late. Angry. Did you hear anything? The prosecutor asked. No. But Gil told me earlier that day he was worried about Cole. Said he thought the man was unstable. Naomi rose slowly. Mr. Reed, she said. Is it true you and Mr. Mackey had an ongoing dispute over an intellectual property settlement worth over $4 million? Jackson blinked. That's irrelevant. Your Honor, Naomi said. We have documented proof that Mr. Reed and Mr. Mackey were preparing for arbitration over a split in their holdings. Mr. Reed stood to gain full control of their tech startup if Mr. Mackey died before the settlement finalized. The jury murmured. Objection, the prosecutor snapped. Sustained, the judge said. Counsel, stay focused. Naomi nodded. But the seed had been planted. After court adjourned, Ezrin and Naomi met again in the holding room. That was dangerous, he said. Going after Reed like that. I don't do safe, she replied. Ezrin studied her. You never told me why you became a lawyer. Naomi looked down. I wanted to fight the kinds of men who made my mother feel small. Ezrin smiled, but it faded quickly. Reed's dirty, he said. But not stupid. If he's involved, he won't leave evidence. We don't need a smoking gun, Naomi replied. We need a shadow of doubt. I have something, he said. But I don't know if it helps. She leaned forward. Tell me. The night I left Gil's penthouse, I saw someone. Coming up the service stairs. Tall. Military posture. Black coat. Didn't see the face. But I heard him say something. What? He said, you owe us, Mackey. No one walks away. Naomi frowned. You're sure? I'd stake my last note on it. Elsewhere, a shadow meeting. Jackson Reed leaned against the back wall of a private wine bar. Across from him sat a woman in a red blazer and sunglasses that never came off. "Cole's lawyer is poking around too much," he said. "She's dangerous. She's Vera's daughter. That's enough." The woman smiled. "We warned Mackie not to talk. He didn't listen. Now you better keep Cole pinned. Or we take over." Jackson swallowed hard. "Understood." Next day, courtroom. Marcelo Veras took the stand. The courtroom buzzed. Naomi sat still as stone. "State your name and occupation." "Marcelo Veras. Former district attorney for this county." "And your relationship to the defendant?" "None. My relationship is to the deceased. Gil Mackey." "Please elaborate." "I was Mackey's attorney for a time. I later severed ties due to unethical practices. I became aware that Mackey was being pressured by individuals connected to defense contracting companies. These were off-the-books deals. Illegal tech transfers. Money laundering. I believe he was trying to leave. That's why he was killed." The room erupted. Objection, speculation. The judge banged the gavel. "Order." But it was too late. The jury had heard every single word. After court, Naomi and Marcelo stood alone in the hallway. "You actually did it," she said quietly. He met her gaze. "I didn't come back for redemption. I came back because I couldn't let my daughter lose her soul for justice." She swallowed hard. "I don't forgive you," she said. He nodded. "That's fair. But I believe you," she added. That was more than he'd expected. As he turned to leave, he said, "Be careful with him." "With who?" "Cole. You're already breaking your own rules." She didn't answer. Night, holding cell. Ezrin waited as Naomi arrived, late, jacket unbuttoned, hair slightly windblown. For once, she didn't sit across the table. She leaned against the wall beside him. "You were right," she said. "Everything you said. Read, the pressure, the shadow money. We found records. Enough to bring federal heat." Ezrin nodded slowly. "You saved my life," he said. Naomi turned to him. "You already saved mine. A long time ago." He looked at her. "Then we're even." She shook her head. "Not even close." Their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. And in that quiet moment, no bars, no charges, no past pain could drown out the simple, growing truth. This wasn't just a defense. It was something deeper. Something worth saving. The courthouse cafe smelled like burnt espresso and last-minute regrets. Marcelo Veras sat by the window, staring out at the rusting skyline. He never liked this city. Too many corners that remembered him. Too many buildings he'd helped build, not in concrete, but in fear. And now? Now his daughter stood at the defense table of a murder case he tried to keep her far away from. A waitress approached with a refill. Marcelo nodded his thanks, then checked the old leather notebook in his coat pocket. It was his only true possession. No property. No offices. No staff. Just years of names, threats, debts, and secrets. He'd burned bridges to keep her safe. But some bridges, like some daughters, insisted on crossing the fire anyway. He glanced down at the headlines scattered across the cafe counter. Star lawyer defends jazz murder mystery. Naomi Veras returns to the spotlight, with a killer client. He scoffed. They knew nothing. They didn't know that Gil Mackey had been a chess piece. A pawn in a system much older and darker than anyone cared to admit. They didn't know how many contracts had been signed in blood. How many strings Marcelo had pulled and then tried, too late, to cut. And now Naomi stood in front of it all, unknowingly towing the same lines he once crossed. Marcelo pulled out his phone. He had one more call to make. Later, Naomi's apartment. Naomi Veras stood at her small kitchen counter, trying to remember how to breathe. Her hands were shaking. She wasn't sure if it was adrenaline or fury. Maybe both. She hadn't expected her father's testimony to hit her like it did. When he said, "I couldn't let my daughter lose her soul for justice," something inside her cracked. Because he wasn't wrong. And she hated that. A knock came at the door. Naomi opened it to find Ezran. Casual jacket, no cuffs today. The DA had agreed to let him out on bond under Naomi's supervision, pending final days of trial. "Did I come at a bad time?" he asked. She stepped aside. "I don't think I know what a good time feels like anymore." Ezran entered. He didn't say much. He never did unless it mattered. He poured her a glass of water, sat beside her at the tiny breakfast table, and waited. Naomi finally spoke. "I swore I'd never become him." Ezran frowned. "Your father?" She nodded. "He used people. Power was his drug. He wasn't just cold, he was surgical. He testified for you." "Only because he knew it made him the martyr in the story," she muttered. "He always wanted to be the man who sacrificed. He couldn't just walk away quietly." Ezran leaned back, arms folded. "You know," he said, "when I was 19, I ran from my father's house and told myself I'd never need him. For anything. I was going to make it on my own. Write my name in lights." Naomi glanced at him. "Did it work?" "I ended up playing in subways and sleeping on couches until I met your mother." Naomi blinked. "She fed me," he said. "Gave me a toothbrush. Made me tell her where I was from. Then she told me something I've never forgotten: sometimes becoming better than them means forgiving them. Not trusting. Not excusing. But forgiving." Naomi was quiet for a long time. "I'm not ready," she finally said. "You don't have to be," he replied. "Just don't let him control you through the hate." Her eyes met his. There was something in his gaze. Something honest. Something steady. "I'm scared," she whispered. "That I'm not as different from him as I want to be." "You are," he said gently. "Because you're sitting here questioning it. That alone makes you nothing like him." Elsewhere, parking garage, underground level. Marcelo leaned against a cement pillar. His phone buzzed. A black sedan pulled up beside him. Tinted windows. Out-of-state plates. The driver rolled down the passenger window just enough. "You called us," the voice said, flat and male. Marcelo tossed a flash drive through the gap. Evidence. Gill's dealings with Jackson Reed. The internal records. If the feds get this, they'll blow the case wide open. "Why are you giving it to us?" Marcelo looked straight into the dark window. "Because you're not stupid enough to let it leak yet. Not until the right person testifies. And that person is Cole." Silence. Then the voice said, "This better work, Veras. If he flips the jury, Reed burns, and we stay in the shadows. But if he tanks." "I know the rules," Marcelo said. "Just protect my daughter. We don't do personal favors. You do if you want to keep the papers from printing what's on that drive." A pause. Then the window rolled up. The car pulled away. Marcelo stayed behind in the dark. Day 3 of trial, courtroom. Ezran Cole took the stand. The courtroom was full. The media buzzed behind camera flashes. Naomi sat rigid at the defense table, watching every move. The prosecutor stepped up first. "You claim you had no motive to kill Mr. Mackey." "I claim I had every motive," Ezran said, calm as ever. "But motive and action aren't the same. Did you or did you not go to his penthouse? I did. Did you argue? Yes. Did you threaten him? No. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. Naomi rose. Mr. Cole, why did you go up there at all? Because I wanted closure, he said. I wanted to hear an apology. Instead, I got cruelty. Did you kill him? No. Then who did? Ezrin hesitated. I can't prove who. But I can tell you what I saw. A man. Tall. Military bearing. Black coat. Going in the back stairwell as I left. Could it have been Jackson Reed? Objection. Sustained. But again, the seed was planted. Outside the courthouse, that night. Naomi stepped out to find Marcello waiting. Not now, she said. I have something you need to see. She hesitated. Then followed him to a bench across the plaza. He handed her a copy of the flash drive. This is the full record. The shell companies, the transfer accounts, the offshore trades. Mackey and Reed weren't just shady, they were running stolen military tech for profit. Naomi flipped through the files on her laptop, mouth tightening. This could indict them both. And probably half the board of directors for Reed's startup, Marcello added. Why now? Because if you leak it now, it looks like desperation. But if Cole gets acquitted and then the records come out, it looks like the truth finally surfaced. Naomi looked at her father. You always did like games. He looked away. I'm trying to help. You helped enough for one lifetime. He stood. If he's acquitted, I'm leaving town. For good. Naomi swallowed. Don't make promises you can't keep. This one, he said, I can. That night, Naomi's apartment. Ezrin sat at her piano. He hadn't touched one in months. His hands hovered above the keys like he wasn't sure they'd remember. Naomi leaned in the doorway. Play, she said gently. He did. A soft piece. Slow. Thoughtful. Full of pauses and hesitations. Like him. Naomi came closer. She didn't say anything. Just sat beside him on the piano bench, her shoulder barely touching his. You were brilliant today, she whispered. You were better, he replied. You know what scares me the most, she said, voice thin. That I'll lose this case. That I won't want to let you go when it's over. Ezrin turned to her. The closeness was unbearable. You won't have to. She leaned in. He didn't stop her. Their lips met, soft, slow, unsure. But real. The kind of kiss that doesn't promise everything. Lena Hartfield hadn't meant to become part of the story. She'd meant to write it. Break it. Shape it. Not live it. But that's the problem with being close to power, sooner or later, it notices you. And so did he. But she didn't think about him yet, not while she adjusted her press badge and scanned the courtroom floor from the gallery seats. Day 4 of the trial. Tensions were a storm beneath the surface. You could feel it in the way jurors crossed their arms, in how the judge's gavel struck just a little harder, and in the way Naomi Veras and Ezrin Cole no longer pretended to be strictly professional. Lena had noticed their closeness, the glances, the quiet nods, the way they occupied space like magnets that weren't supposed to touch but couldn't help it. She'd noticed everything. That was her job. But there was one thing she hadn't written yet. That she knew the victim. Not well. But enough. Gil Mackey had been a source, once. A man who fed her breadcrumbs of corruption in return for flattering articles about his so-called philanthropy. He had promised her access to his private dealings. Instead, he tried to buy her silence with a check she never cashed. And a threat she never forgot. So when he turned up dead with a piano string around his throat, Lena had only felt one thing. Relief. And then. Guilt. Earlier that week, newsroom. "You're too close," her editor had warned. "You knew him, Lena." "That's a conflict." "I didn't know him," she lied. "I reported on him. And I never trusted him." Her editor narrowed his eyes. "Still too close." "Then let me prove it," she said. "Let me dig." "You better not bury yourself while you're at it." Courtroom, present day. Lena's attention snapped back to the present as a new witness took the stand, Amari Vestal, Gil's former executive assistant. She was pale, hands trembling slightly, and her voice was barely above a whisper. I saw Mr. Reed in Mr. Mackey's office that night," she said. "They argued. I don't know what about. But Reed said something like, 'You're not walking away from this.'" Lena's pulse quickened. That matched Ezra's testimony from the day before. Jackson Reed looked furious. The prosecutor objected. The judge allowed the testimony to stay on record. Naomi shot a glance toward Ezra, her expression unreadable. Lena pulled out her phone, fingers typing faster than thought. Source confirms timeline, Reed threatened Mackey the night of murder. Then she paused. She was supposed to stay objective. But this wasn't about objectivity anymore. That evening, Side Street Cafe. He was sketching again. Lena spotted him from the sidewalk, hunched over his pad, cross-legged in a window booth. Sketching witnesses, jury profiles, trial day expressions, little moments that couldn't be photographed. Dorian Hale. Courtroom sketch artist. Hands like a poet. Voice like a whispered joke. And eyes that never missed a single flicker of truth. He looked up, caught her watching, and smiled. "You always walk by 3 times before coming in." "Just checking the lighting," she said. He waved her over. "Or checking me." She sat across from him, ignoring the heat in her chest. "You finished the Reed sketch?" "Half an hour ago." "I think I captured his smugness perfectly." Lena laughed, despite herself. They hadn't defined what they were. Mostly stolen conversations between hearings. The occasional dinner, always, for context. But Dorian noticed her the way no one else did. Like he didn't want to own her story, only listen to it. "You look tired," he said gently. Lena sighed. "I've been sitting on something. A detail I haven't published." He tilted his head. "Want to tell me?" "No." "Then why mention it?" She looked out the window. "Because it's starting to feel like lying." "You mean, not telling the truth, or hiding that you know it?" "Both." He put down his pencil. "You can't be the story, Lena. It'll eat you." "I think I already am," she whispered. He reached across the table, covering her hand. "Then maybe it's time to write your way out." Later, her apartment. She couldn't sleep. The air was too still. The guilt too loud. She opened her laptop. Created a new draft. Headline, "Before the music stopped, what I never said about Gil Mackey." Byline, "Lena Hartfield." She wrote it all. The meetings. The lies. The check she never cashed. The file he showed her about military tech, then deleted. How he laughed when she threatened to publish. And how afraid she'd been after. She stopped before the final paragraph. Hands shaking. Then she closed the laptop. Tomorrow. Maybe. Day 5, courtroom. Naomi noticed her first. Lena entered, eyes sunken, hair messy under her hat. She wasn't reporting today. She was waiting. She was part of the next witness list. Naomi blinked. Then turned to Ezra. "She's coming forward." "Should we be worried?" he asked. "No. We should be grateful." When Lena took the stand, she didn't read notes. She spoke clearly. Calmly. I met Mr. Mackey several times for interviews, she said. He hinted at shady business. One night, he showed me classified schematics. I don't know how he got them. But when I asked questions, he got angry. I never published. I regret that. Why come forward now? Naomi asked during cross. Lena's voice trembled. Because it matters. And because people like him rely on people like me to stay quiet. I'm done with that. Her gaze flicked to Dorian in the gallery. He nodded. The judge thanked her. The jury looked stunned. Naomi turned to Ezran. That's the piece we needed. Outside, that afternoon. Lena stepped out into bright sunlight. Dorian was waiting. She stopped. So, he said. You're free. I don't feel free. Give it time. I thought telling the truth would feel like winning. It feels like bleeding first, he said softly. Then healing. Lena studied him. Why are you still here? Because you didn't run. She stepped closer. He smiled. You going to kiss me? Not yet. Good, he said. I'd rather draw it first. Later that night, Naomi's apartment. Ezran was barefoot at the piano again. Naomi watched him, arms crossed, unsure if she should speak. Finally, he did. I think you saved me. No, she replied. You saved yourself. I just stood next to you. He looked at her, eyes gentle. Then stay standing. She came closer. He kissed her this time. Not hesitant. Not unsure. Like a song he'd always known but finally had the right melody for.